Hello and welcome to Transform Tuesday, the 2021 series. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. I'm joined today by Sarah Mitchell, head of our documentation department. Today, the subject that I wanted to cover was on canned images. Those are images that you can let your users choose and draw on while they are using the mobile app of Transform. So examples of a canned image might be a picture of a car, for example, in which where the picture is already there, it's just like a cartoon drawing of a car, and you can like circle areas of it to indicate maybe where damage took place. Another example of a pre-canned image might be a picture of the human body. So if you are a physical therapist, you might circle the areas where the patient is having pain and things like that. And it's a really cool feature, and I'm absolutely going to show it to you, but I'm going to show it to you next week because in order to use the feature, you need to actually have these pictures and load them up into the on-device assets of Transform. And I realized we haven't talked about on-device assets, or not very much, for quite a while. In fact, I think the last time we did it was April 2019. And I was like, okay, well, forget it. It is time for a refresher course on on-device assets. And in fact, I'm going to pull out some of the video that we did back in 2019 because it's still relevant and still good. So let's get started and we'll take it away. Just a quick note, though, I'm going to be switching to a partially pre-recorded video. You don't have to do anything this time. In the past, I've said, oh, please go to this URL or something like that. No, you could stay right there, but I want to warn you, sometimes the volume is a little loud when it starts, okay? So everyone grab your volume control knob. So I don't want to blast your speakers, just in case that happens. All right, so let's go. We're talking about the ability to put things into your Transform application that you can get to from your Transform application that are files and documents and other types of data. So in particular, the three big use cases are training videos. So if there's some sort of video that maybe a service worker in the field needs to be able to access offline from the app, you can add that to your Transform application. PDFs, instruction manuals, also a very big use case. And there are lots of other file types too. You might have Excel spreadsheets, you might have Word documents. And then last, but certainly not least, would be SQLite, which is a database system that can run right on the phone. And with SQLite, you could do something like have it so that when you scan a barcode, it looks up that barcode in a database. Let's say you're scanning a barcode that's on a piece of equipment, and you could look up service information about that equipment. When was it last serviced? What to look out for? And also just to verify that you're on the right place. So very, very useful and for lots of different reasons. And I did discuss last time, and I'm going to sort of review how you get the data onto the device and how you access it in Transform. So we're going to go through that quickly, but then I have a follow-up to show you some new tools that have been built in Alpha Anywhere, a companion product to Transform, that make this job much, much easier. So to begin, when you want to add assets that you want to access on a phone, there are three main steps. The first thing is that you put the files somewhere on a server. Now, very often, I'd say more often than not nowadays, people what we come across are using Amazon S3 to keep those sorts of files stored because it's a place where you can make sure that you have a secure connection. It's inexpensive. It has a very robust infrastructure. And you don't have the headaches, of course, of managing servers yourself. You're using a cloud-based system. So S3 storage from Amazon seems to be the one that most people use, and it's one that we are supporting actually have integrated quite tightly into the product, and I'll show you how that works too. The next thing you need to do, though, once all the files are there, is you need to build this special file called a manifest, and this file gets loaded into your account in Transform Central. And it tells it where all the assets are, what kind of assets they are, where to find them, and what folder to put them in when it's time to retrieve them. It also has information about version numbers so that you can have it so that if you update an asset but you keep the same name, it'll pull down the new copy when appropriate. So let's go on, and I'm going to show you a couple more examples. So here, this is the JSON Manifest file that I was telling you about, and you get to it right in Transform's Home tab, and you click Define OnDevice Assets, and there's this box here, and that's where you put in the JSON, and here's a close-up of the JSON. And it took on this format, basically. The URL, this is where it's located. In this case, I had a manual for a Zamboni. That's one of those ice resurfacing machines for ice skating rinks. And I had that in PDF format. And I told Transform, this is a file. This is where it's located. And I want to put it in a folder called PDF Docs. And this is version 1 of that document. The next one is the break fix video. That's an MP4 file. And I told it it's also a file and it goes in videos, and that should be version 1. So now you can kind of see how to do this yourself, right? I mean, building out this JSON file in a text editor isn't terribly complicated. But what will happen, but what happens is if you have an awful lot of files, it gets really tedious, and we actually have a way around that. So we're taking a look now at Alpha Anywhere. For those of you who are new to Alpha Anywhere but only know Transform, Alpha Anywhere is a low-code product that Alpha produces for building both mobile and web applications. In fact, Transform itself was written using Alpha Anywhere. And we keep building in more and more tighter integrations because these two products can work really nicely together. In this case, what we've built is we've built a special Genie, a tool that allows you to gather together your on-device assets, upload those assets, and create the manifest file for you. And that can save you an awful lot of work, especially when you're dealing with a lot of files, and it also makes it more foolproof. So let's talk about how you would go about doing that. The first thing you would want to do, and this system uses right now the S3, Amazon S3. So that's the example that I'm going to go with today. If you don't have an S3 account, they're easy to get. You go to aws.amazon.com, you sign up for an account. I think you need to provide a credit card number, but if you're below a certain usage amount, you will not, in fact, be charged for your use. So it's actually kind of a good thing. I've had it for a while. I've never been dinged. So once you get into the Amazon Web Console, they call it, we went ahead and we created a brand new S3 bucket. And I gave the bucket a name, and I chose the region that it was located in. This made sense to me because the server I'm running it on is also fairly close. We have, they have regions in all over the world. So choose one which makes the most sense for your application. I basically left all the defaults alone as I was creating it. So here is the next page of that setup process. After that, I clicked next. And again, I took all of the defaults. I clicked next again. And I finally clicked the create bucket, and it created the bucket for me. And it returned me back here to the console. And in the console, there's my Transform Tuesday bucket. Now, there's something that I need, much like an API key when you're working with Transform and Alpha Anywhere. With S3, we need to actually build what's called an S3 connection string. This will allow us to connect to S3 from Alpha and put the files into the file bucket. And it will also allow those files to be there, so when Transform comes and downloads them, that's where they'll be. So to do that, I went into the console and I selected my bucket, and I said, in my security credentials section, I was able to create what are called security credentials. So I found that under access keys, you'll find that here. And basically when I clicked to open it, it showed me an access key and my secret access key, which I have covered up here in my slides so that no one steals it. All right. Once I had that information, I went back into Alpha Anywhere and I built a storage connection string. Let me show you live where that is. Here's a screenshot of it, but it's just as easy to show it to you. I found that here in Tools, and I went down to Storage Connection Strings, and that's it right there. Uh-oh, I'm showing my key after all. Oh, well, I guess I'll have to change it. And that's where it is. To build it, I just said New. I gave it a name. Let's say it's my name. I'm not actually going to save this. And I said Build Connection String. We have different options here. Right now, though, for that Genie, we're only supporting Amazon S3, so use that one for now. You could choose the region, just make sure it's the same region. Again, it was US East. And then those access keys and secret keys I just showed you about, you're gonna paste those in, and finally you'll test the connection. Let me show you one that I've already built. Here Here it is. I test the connection and it succeeded. So there is my, that's how I built up my storage string, which I called my S3 connection string. All right. Now that the connection string is built, we'll do this live too. I'm gonna go into the tools menu and I'm gonna go down into more, and I'm gonna choose OnDevice Data Builder for transform/PhoneGap applications. And I'm going to click on that, and that is the dialog box that I see. Now, all I have to do in order to build and upload my assets is select them here in this dialog box. And so I'm going to go over to Add Item, and click Add Item, and it's going to ask me what type of item, and here are my choices. I can insert a folder worth of information. I can insert an individual file. I can actually create and insert a SQL database. We'll get to that in a moment. And probably the easiest one is a URL. That just means that into the manifest, just point the URL to an asset that's already there. You don't need to upload it to the server because it's already on the server. But in this case, let's just choose say a file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here in file name, and it just basically is choosing right from my computer. Now here is my picture library. And so let's say I'm just going to choose desert.jpg. I'm going to choose that one photo. There it is. Great. And we're going to click OK. What I could do here, though, okay. Oh, I need to say where I'm going to put it. I'm going to put it into a folder called images. All right, so that selected just one image. That was easy. But what I can also do is I can add a folder, and I can go here into File Explorer, and here I am back at my pictures library. Now let's say along with JPEGs I had some text files and some other kinds of files, but I was only interested in JPEGs. I can actually do a wildcard search here, which is pretty helpful. I think I need to do it on the next page though. Let's try start at JPEG. Nope. What I did was I simply selected one. I could just go ahead and change this to asterisk.jpg, and anything with got a JPEG next to it, it's going to pick up from that folder. So there it is. I'm going to actually cancel out of that. The other thing I can do is I can actually save and load these settings. I might want to have this manifest in many different applications. In fact, I've done one earlier before I started the webinar, so I'm going to actually load one that I already have. It's called My Data. And you'll see once again, I did this thing with the multiple files. Okay, so far I have selected a folder which has a bunch of images in it and a SQLite database. And now let's say I want to put all of these into my transform application. This is what I would do. The first thing I would do is I would probably first define my S3 properties. And so when I define my S3 properties, that's the storage connection string that we just built a little bit earlier. So I'm going to click on that link, and I'm just going to choose the my S3 connection string. The folder name, I think you can leave this blank and have it put in the root, but I tend to like put it in something called like my app or something, so it's one level down. And then we need to give a name to the manifest file. I'm just going to call it my manifest. All right. So now I've defined these properties, and I can go ahead and generate that file. And over here, this little checkbox, which is grayed out, means you can't click on it, but it indicates that those files were generated. So the next thing I can do is I can upload these files to S3. I'm just going to click that button. And this usually doesn't take very long. That was pretty quick. So that took my entire product database and all of those images, and it tossed it up onto S3. Would that take about a second? Not too bad. And then the last thing I want to do now is take this and let Transform know that this manifest is ready for it. So the way to do that is I click the Show Manifest URL JSON. And just in case you had forgotten that, up here in the instructions, it says Transform users, paste this URL into the prompt in Transform Central. I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to click Show Manifest URL. So there's the manifest URL. I'm going to go ahead and copy that to the clipboard so that I can use that in Transform Central. But if you want to take a peek at what's going on behind the scenes, we can actually take a look at the JSON file behind it. And you'll see the JSON file. This is the manifest file that we would have otherwise been creating by hand, which I showed you a little earlier in the PowerPoint. Now you'll notice it has 2 items in there. Remember I said I had a whole bunch of pictures? Well, that's true, but they're all kept in a zip file, which I put in images, and they're calling this temp folder 1.zip. And also this is another one called zip. Now the cool thing is when these get downloaded onto the device, they get unzipped there. So the advantage to this is that if you have, say, 1,000 images, right? If you're transferring them one at a time onto a mobile device, it's going to take an awful long time. But if you have thousands of images and you put them into a zip file and you bring them down and unzip them on the device, it becomes very practical, and you can do it within a few moments. All right, so let me go ahead and close that. So I have copied the manifest to my clipboard, and now I'm going to go back over to Transform. And I'm going to go down here to define on-device assets. Okay, and if you remember from last week, I had, or a few weeks ago, these are my other ones here. I'm just actually going to wipe out this manifest. I'm going to paste in my own. And that's all I need. So now Transform knows, and my Transform app will know next time I open it up, and next time I publish this, that it needs to go up to Amazon S3, pull down and unzip a bunch of images, and also go to Amazon S3 and pull down the database and put the images in the images folder and the database in the SQLite folder. And then from there, I can run back into Transform and write some TPL to start accessing those files and that database. All right, let me go back to showing my screen here. The main screen, great. Wonderful. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but if anyone does have questions on how to get files up onto S3, how to create an S3 bucket, or how to set up the manifest file, you can go ahead and type them into the questions box, or probably even better, send them by email to tfservice, as in transform service, at alphasoftware.com. Now, next week, we're going to take that knowledge and we're going to start working with canned images. We'll be doing a couple other things as well. And again, if you do have any questions or topics that you'd like us to cover, go ahead and send in an email as well. So let me see if we have any questions here for today to take. It doesn't look like it. So that's it. Hey, thanks very much, everyone, for showing up. Thanks, Sarah, for standing by and helping me out with all the technical stuff before we got started. Again, more questions, send them to tfservice at alphasoftware.com. Hope to see you next Tuesday at our next webinar. Take care and have a great week. Stay well. Bye-bye.